Whether it's on bonnets, steering wheels, or tyres, car brands take any opportunity to show off their logos. But more recently, they've had to adapt them to fit avatars and app icons for screens big and small. This, along with the great electrification of the entire industry, has forced car companies to seriously rethink their logo designs. And the results have been, in some cases, dramatic, and in others, quite boring. Some are inspired by the past. Some have taken bold and puzzling steps into the future. So, what road has each brand taken? Let's find out. These are the top 13 least obvious car logo redesigns. Number 13. Aston Martin. In 2022, James Bond's car brand of choice introduced a new logo, updated by famed designer Peter Saville. Described by Saville as subtle but necessary, the new logo is most likely imperceptibly different to some. The iconic wings remain, but the lines have been thickened, and the semicircle is gone. The gradient behind the word mark has been removed and replaced by a solid British racing green, and the text has been scaled up and increased in weight. While not a dramatic change, this redesign ever so slightly simplifies the iconic logo. Probably the best route to take when you're refreshing a brand that's over 100 years old. However, it would have been interesting to revisit the design concepts of 1927 and 1930, where the letters of the brand form the shape of the wings. This may have helped improve the legibility at smaller sizes, a particular priority for digital. Nonetheless, subtle but necessary was the design concept, and that's exactly what Saville and his team have delivered. Number 12. Rolls-Royce. In 2020, Rolls-Royce revised its branding and adjusted the pecking order when it came to which symbol was front and center. The iconic stacked R emblem is still around, but is now taking a back seat to a redesigned Spirit of Ecstasy symbol. Better known as the ornament that sits on the bonnet of their vehicles, Rolls-Royce actually used the Spirit of Ecstasy symbol as their logo from 1911 to 1920. Design agency Pentagram have revisited this concept, simplifying the symbol and flipping it. This is now the icon you'll see the brand using on social media as its avatar, replacing the stacked R. Yet you'll still see the stacked R within the car and on other bits of branding. It's interesting to see how the stacked R will work in tandem with the Spirit of Ecstasy symbol. You can see this from some of Pentagram's mock-ups of brochures and packaging. And it's here you can also see the brand's new word mark, which has been changed from using Gill Sands to using a customized version of Riviera Nights. It's a bit of a curious one, this logo change, because the stacked R's were very iconic and just instantly recognizable as the Rolls-Royce brand. And compared to the Spirit of Ecstasy symbol, I would have thought that the stacked R's would be more legible at smaller sizes for things like avatars and app icons and favicons. So while they've tried to create a system that gives us the best of both worlds, my prediction is that the stacked R's will be back as the main symbol of the brand sometime in the future. Number 11. Škoda. To signify the electrification of their new cars, a common theme on this list, Czech car manufacturer Škoda introduced a new logo in 2022. In what was its biggest rebrand in 30 years, the company flattened its winged arrow logo, updated its color scheme, and introduced a new word mark. While the symbol doesn't look all that different, even though I had no idea what it was actually meant to be until I did my research, it's the word mark that's the most interesting change. In all the previous logos, the S has an accent on it to signify that it's an SH sound to say Škoda, not Škoda. But the brand seemed to think that English-speaking audiences either didn't really know what to do with this accent and just thought it was a little quirk, or it put them off from connecting fully with the brand. Škoda wanted to eliminate this problem, but still appeal to its local audience. So they decided to move forward by downplaying the accent by incorporating it into the S. The thinking being that people in the European market will notice that it's meant to be an accent and what it's meant to mean, and people in the English-speaking market can just ignore it. And to a degree, that seems to have worked. However, because the A in the word mark also has an angled stroke, people have assumed that this is all just a design choice, and that the real aim was to mimic Tesla's logo in Škoda's quest to electrify the company. Regardless of what people think, I think the word mark is a nice improvement. But the new colour scheme is a little heavy-handed. The modern mint green sort of screams electric and future and tech in a very cliche way. And it all feels a bit too trendy and out of the box. For over 30 years, Škoda has used this green, which, although probably not universally appealing, is very distinctive. When compared, this new green colour palette feels a bit impersonal, like any brand could have grabbed it from a colour scheme suggestion site. And topped off with this low quality launch video, this rebrand seems a bit like amateur hour. Not quite the rebrand this 100-year-old car company deserved. Number 10, Volkswagen. If you're looking for a dramatic logo transformation, VW's new logo will not be at the top of your list. Introduced in 2020 to mark the electrification of their vehicles, Volkswagen's new logo is a lesson in restraint. It eschews the skeuomorphism of the previous version, slims the V and W, lifts the W slightly to give it room to breathe, and subtly rounds off its corners. It all makes for a sleeker logo that's more legible at smaller sizes. And unlike Škoda's rebrand, it feels true to Volkswagen's identity. Just the latest careful iteration of its iconic emblem. Along with the new symbol, they've updated the font used for their wordmark and headlines. Previously known for using Futura to great effect, they're now using their own custom typeface. While it's unlikely this update will wash away the dirt of Dieselgate or VW's terrible in-car software, they can rest easy knowing this logo redesign was drama-free. Number 9, BMW. Intended to communicate more openness and clarity, BMW's 2020 logo redesign made them one of the first car brands to go flat. The main elements stay, including the blue and white, which is a wink to the company's home state of Bavaria, and the letters BMW also stay, only now they're in the company's custom font. But the black wheel is gone, giving the logo more room to breathe and blend with whatever's behind it. It may seem overly simplistic in a similar vein to the BBC's recent redesign. They've flattened the design, removed an element, and adjusted the font. But while not the boldest transformation, it's just the latest in a long line of iterations to a design that's been around since 1917. Although it's not actually going to be used on the brand's vehicles or dealership signage. So, that's weird. Number 8, Audi. Good design is less design. Dieter Rams's famous philosophy has guided this German car maker to a new logo. Introduced in 2022, it's a flatter, thinner version of the 4 interlocking rings that were introduced in 1932 to represent Audi's 4 founder companies. It was meant to solve a consistency issue with 3D versions of the logo used in some places and 2D versions used in others. The internal design team wanted the same logo with the same geometry and the same weight used everywhere, including on Audi's cars. The plan was to have thinner rings with the exact same geometry used digitally, outlined in black and illuminated from behind, used on all of its vehicles, with bevels on the black border so that it would still catch light in a similar way to the previous 3D chrome logo. The best of both worlds, right? Well, not quite. Upon the new logo's launch, there were a lot of complaints from Audi customers, along with people who aspired to own an Audi. They wanted to feel the rings at the front of their car and see that interlocking 3D chrome shiny design that's become so iconic. So for now, most new Audis seem to have reverted back to using the shiny chrome logo. And even digitally, they seem to have added more weight to the logo. There was a period where I was seeing a lot of ads with very thin rings, but now they seem to be a lot thicker, very similar to how they looked before. So if less design is good design, Audi's rebrand, not so good. Number 7, Volvo. In 2021, Volvo updated its logo on its digital platforms and started rolling it out to vehicles in 2023. It's the next logical step for the iron mark, which made its first appearance in 1930. The circle and arrow design is meant to be the alchemy symbol for iron, and was chosen by Volvo to mark the strength and quality of Swedish steel. Over the years, it's disappeared, returned, and jostled for prominence with the word mark and the blue bar. Now the blue bar is gone. The word mark floats in the middle, and the arrow uses negative space to poke out of the circle. Only one problem though. The angle of the arrow still clashes with the angle of the iconic diagonal bar on the front of Volvo's vehicles. The diagonal bar featured on the first ever Volvo as a way to get the logo in the centre of its grille. Aside from a blip between 1944 and 1968, it's been a feature of most Volvos. Which is why it's incredibly strange that the designers behind this rebrand, not to mention all the designers before them, haven't sought to address this. The closest they've come is altering the angle of the arrow in the logo to match the diagonal bar on their vehicles, so you know that they know that it's a problem. Why they haven't tried to find a more consistent, scalable solution beats me. Number 6, Ford. Here's one for you. Have you ever looked at the Ford logo? Like, really studied the lettering of it? Because I hadn't. For decades now, Ford's iconic oval logo has always appeared in some form of 3D, either with gloss or drop shadows or gradients. But its recent flattening and deepening of the blue that it uses has made me look at the word mark in a whole new way. Around since 1912, it's been a constant with only minimal changes. But recently, it's been spending more time out of the oval and shining on its own. It's really made me appreciate how much character and history it contains, and just how dominating container shapes can be. The simplification of its logo and the deepening of its hero colour signify to me that the Ford brand is moving towards a gradual reimagination. Time will tell if I'm right here. One thing I know for sure, however, is I'll never get over this unused Paul Rand design of the Ford logo. I mean, this could have been their logo now, no redesign needed, but that's a video for another day. Number 5. Nissan. Redesigned Nissan logo signals fresh horizon, says Nissan. Nissan's previous logo, which had been around for more than 20 years, needed a change. The brand's iconic circle and strap has been around since 1933. After a detour between 1940 and 1983, the brand has featured some version of this design as its emblem. But by the late 2010s, the brand wanted something that could fit digital a bit better and mark, you guessed it, its electrification. They wanted the logo on their electric vehicles to be illuminated, but this had some consequences. They had to tailor the thickness of the logo to make sure that it was still legible when lit up and not blown out. In 2020, the company revealed the result. The redesign replaces the previous industrial metal look with a logo that can work in 2D and 3D. It's the biggest departure in the company's logo design since the early 80s. And it's quite striking to look at, although I'm sure to some, it looks like nothing has changed. And that's a tricky feat to accomplish. Number 4. Citröen. It's back to the future for this French car brand, which has delved into its past to take it into the future. In 2022, Citröen introduced a new logo based on its first logo from 1919. Designed by its in-house team in collaboration with Stellantis Design Studio, the new symbol incorporates the iconic chevrons, which have been part of every logo iteration since the company's founding. They're an nod to founder André Citröen, whose first company, a metalworking business, produced chevron-shaped herringbone gear systems. The chevrons spent many years in various types of ovals. Then from 1985, they spent time in a rectangle and then out on their own. In 1959, they changed shape, growing pointed edges, before being rounded off in 2009. 3D rendering appeared on the logo from then on and didn't fully disappear until the current logo. The latest logo updates the original, thickening the chevrons and putting them in an oval with almost human-like softness, as the company puts it. The word mark has also been updated, with Citroën's proprietary font being sharpened up. The new symbol with the new word mark is altogether more focused and balanced. Number 3. Renault. Another French car company that looked to the past to get to the future is Renault, which updated its logo in 2021. Like many of the car makers on this list, Renault had long relied on 3D metallic rendering to make its logo legible. Its ribbon-like form had been in constant use since 1992. But now with its electrification strategy and the need to have consistency between its digital and physical brands, it was time for a change. The in-house design team, headed by Gilles Vidal, took great inspiration from the brand's past logos. Particularly this 1972 line art version, which first realized the lozenge design using intertwining optical effects. Simplifying from there, they ended up with this line art design, which can look like one continuous lozenge or two overlapping ones. It works just as well on screen as it does illuminated on the nose of a car. An excellent wink to the past that sets up the brand for the future. Number 2. Peugeot. In 2021, Peugeot unveiled its new logo, and it was a dramatic change from the previous one. Used in a similar formation since the early 90s, the standing line on top of some form of word mark was the image that many people associated with the French car maker. In the new logo, however, it's hard to know whether the line is standing or sitting because its body is completely cropped out. It's completely 2D, with the strokes that form the lion strategically drawn to give just enough detail for the eye to make it out. And it's all placed inside a black shield with a sleek new Peugeot word mark. Now I know this addition to the list might seem a bit off topic, but here's why I think it's worth including. When I started seeing this logo in the wild, I thought it was a completely different car brand. I mean, there are just so many car brands with lions on their logos, including one of Australia's most famous and also recently deceased brands, Holden. And then there's the shield. A lot of car brands use them as well. Peugeot's new logo is a version of an old logo that they used from 1960 to 1968. But compared to, say, Citröen's new logo, which involved them looking to the past for the future, Peugeot's look to the past has led them a bit off-road. It's just so dramatic to replace the iconic standing lion logo, which they used in some formation since 1948, with a logo inspired by a design that they only used for 8 years. So instead of seeing the new logo on their new ads or their new cars and going, ooh, that's the new Peugeot logo, I looked at it and thought, oh, it's some car brand I don't know. And on top of all of that, is this really a more scalable logo? I mean, is this really something that is easy to recognize at smaller sizes? A shield, a word mark, a complex lion? It's a lot of design. So, is this logo a big change? Yes. Does it make much sense? No. Number 1. Kia. In 2021, Kia unveiled its new logo, and it was dramatic. So was the reaction in the design world. Kia commits the ultimate design crime. The Kia logo is so unreadable. The Kia logo redesign was a total flop. But a few years on, I think the reaction was very overblown. Kia's logo history is bizarre. While most brands have some elements that are constant, Kia's been throwing spaghetti at the wall since day one. And when you look into its history as a company, it kind of makes sense. I mean, the company started by manufacturing steel tubing and bicycle parts before dying multiple times and then finally being rescued by Hyundai in the late 90s. But since then, it's struggled to find its own identity, both in its home market, abroad, and even in its own organization. In the US, Kia was periodically considered a manufacturer of cheap, reliable cars or cheap, unreliable cars. As Kia's reliability improved, however, it struggled to differentiate itself from its sister brand, Hyundai. And this lack of identity extended to their logo. Aside from a subtle change to its outline, Kia's logo had been pretty much the same since 1994. And aside from some flicks at the top of each letter and the A missing its strap, it was hardly distinctive. In an era of Teslas and electrification, Kia wanted a new identity. So in 2021, the company hired Michael Keller and his studio Blackspace to create a new logo. Following a design process that took years to complete, Kia's new logo made its debut in 2021. And it made a splash. Only for a different brand. With around 30,000 searches per month on Google, KN Car had finally arrived. Yes, people looking at the new Kia logo didn't realize it actually said Kia. Keller and Blackspace had wanted to create something that reflected the meaning of the word Kia, which apparently means Ki for rising and A for Asia. Rising Asia. Their angled upward strokes led them to this mark, which they tested using materials that would be featured in later car designs. Now that the dust has settled, the new Kia logo did actually usher in a new and vibrant chapter for the car brand. They found their identity, designing modern and quirky cars that are no longer seen as purely cheap. And their entry into the electric vehicle market has actually been met with great acclaim. They've used design to carve out a new identity for themselves that's distinct from Hyundai. And it all started with a logo that people thought was for a different brand. Electrification and digitization have prompted an industry-wide identity crisis for car companies. Some of these creative long nights of the soul have led to inspired winks to the past, less inspired flattenings, and subtle simplifications. Others have resulted in the Kia logo. Many of these companies are 100 years old or older, and yet many have been able to gracefully balance respecting their history and looking to the future. Others, like Peugeot, less so. Each of these logos offers a case study of the different considerations companies, and more specifically their design and marketing teams, have to weigh up when making changes to a brand's symbol. While you can never truly know how a logo redesign will be received until it's revealed, one thing's for sure: that Cayenne car company has a bright future ahead of it.